Hello and welcome back to the Polarity podcast, the show where an RTD fanboy and an RTD critic discuss the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who. We are on the final episode of Series 1, the final story of Series 1, Bad Wolf / The Parting of the Ways.
Yep.
Now, bear in mind, before we go into this, dear listener, faithful viewer, to quote RTD himself, that this is all in good fun. We're, it's a lively debate, a healthy debate. It's all in good fun, isn't it, Gav?
No.
Okay. So with that in mind, what do you think of this story?
It's fucking terrible, I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's genuinely the worst story in the entire series. And I'd probably rank it towards the bottom of Doctor Who stories of all time.
Do you care to elaborate? Just a little bit?
No. Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Series 2 coming sometime October, I think. Anyway, goodbye. No, okay, right. In all seriousness, I think it's an episode that if it didn't have the big problem that we'll get into later on, which is, to my mind, the ethics and morals of the story, it's an otherwise very mid story. It's got nothing special about it. I don't think anything in there hadn't been done before. I think a lot of the aspects of the story that are really, really praised are nowhere near as good when you actually sit down and watch the episode versus what fans say about it. It's got a couple of okay moments, to be fair to it. I'm not saying it's all bad. I don't think there's a Doctor Who episode that is all bad. But having said that, it's fucking atrocious. And I suppose that's my early synopsis.
Fair enough. This is my favourite story of the series. It's my favourite Ninth Doctor story. I think it's up there with Caves of Androzani as my favourite Regeneration story. It's a near perfect wrap up to Nine's arc. It is one of the earliest memories I have of like feeling something watching TV and like having the realization that television could make me feel things.
I'll agree with you on that one. It made me feel an intense hatred. That's what it made me feel.
Every time I watch it, I think it just gets better and better. As a kid, I kind of liked it on one level, and then as an adult, and every time I've watched it, it's everything about it just hits for me. I think it's infinitely rewatchable. I think it's dark and grim, but without being mean-spirited about it. I think it's one of my favourite bits of Doctor Who ever broadcast. What a contrast to start with, then. I guess the best thing to do is to start at the beginning and work our way through as we go along this, isn't it?
That's the only way we can, I think.
To get to the root of our disagreement here.
Would we ever? Welcome to the 10-hour-long episode. Buckle up.
Okay, so we start off very action-packed, very, very disorientating, very into it pre-title sequence. Doctor Who is there. He's curled in a fetal position on the floor in a cupboard. He stumbles out, and it's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And he's on Big Brother. Do not live on channel 44,000. Please do not swear. And then we're into the titles.
My God.
Do you have any comments?
It's an interesting premise that doesn't get explored nearly as far as it should. That's my early base comment. I don't know.
Go expand on that, because I think it pretty much does everything it needs to.
Basically, you've got this episode that's kind of fucked itself from the beginning by having this dual premise of you've got the game show thing and you've got your finale and you want Daleks back. So you have a really cool premise here. Let's try and strip it down. Let's start from the basics. You've got the game show story, okay? You've got a game show where something's wrong. That could probably be a two-parter in and of itself. Just that aspect of them playing out the game. Just a series of playing through the games. I think in and of itself could be interesting. There's a lot to explore in those different forms of TV and how we consume it. It's kind of explored in the episode, but not nearly as well as I think it would be if it was more focused. You could have Daleks in that too. I think they would be weirdly used for it because I just don't think they have enough. They wouldn't have enough presence as they deserve to have if that was the case. Because you don't want the Daleks just to be background villains or something like that, background characters, I suppose. So you're left with this kind of toss-up of various aspects that just don't feel like they're executed enough. That's probably the best way I can think to explain it so far.
I don't think it's ever overstuffed or anything, though. I think it all pretty much dovetails into the ideas nicely. I think I mean, to be honest, I'm always surprised that they just straight up show people dying on this thing. Obviously, we know that a lot of them don't die, and Rose is alive and everything. But it's like I'm often surprised at like how far they go in showing like the brutality of the game shows.
I think it reminds me. This episode reminds me of the way I think they used to. I don't know if they still do. The way they take photos of burgers for adverts, where they sort of come and inflate the bun a bit. It's three components primarily, I suppose. You've got the finale, the Daleks, and the game show bit, and they all feel like these. Yeah, they're not overstuffed, but that's because each element itself is considerably weaker and lighter than it could be. It's like really diluted, I guess. Maybe is a good way to describe that.
I don't get that at all. I think they're all really strong. I think the story catches you off guard. I think we have, it starts off as this like, oh, Doctor Who's in Big Brother. It's a crossover, ha ha ha. And then as it goes along, it just gets progressively like, hang on, there's something sinister going on here. Get the reveal of the Daleks, which we'll come on to later.
Which is too soon. They reveal them, by the way, way too soon.
Really?
It's too early on.
When did you want it to be revealed?
At the end of part 1, like a Terry Nation sort of thing.
Yeah, but like if we 45 minutes, so it's a 90-minute thing. That's a 4-parter.
Well, the problem is for me,
say it's a 4-part Dalek story in the classic series.
You already knew, in a way, we already knew there were going to be Daleks in it as well, because if you watch the Next Time trailer, you already see them from the previous episode from Boomtown. So it's
I know, but like
you might as well just like I feel like
but like by that argument, you watch a story called Genesis of the Daleks or Destiny of the Daleks. Well, the Daleks are going to be in it, so just put them in it straight away. Which
you kind of do. I mean, there's obviously a build-up, but it happens. I think in that case though, you've only waited 25 minutes, and then you've got part 1, then you wait a week. You get that kind of digestion of it, don't you? Whereas with this, it's like, well, you've got them sort of early on. They're mucking about. And one of the things with Daleks is, unless the stakes are constantly rising, the Daleks don't stay threatening. And I feel like their threat diminishes throughout the episode as well. And
it's not that early. They're not like in it from moment 1.
No, but they're in soon enough where it's just like, well, But
again, it's like the same time as a classic story would do it, because that week format only works if you're watching it on broadcast. Waiting a week that only affects things if you're watching it on broadcast.
True.
So it's surely it's the same amount of time when you put the total runtime together, right?
I suppose, yeah. I'll take you on that point. It just, I don't know. I guess when I was watching it, it just didn't feel like it was. It just didn't. It felt too soon. I guess I don't know. Maybe I've not got a good way of explaining that, but I think I just felt watching it. I was like, hang on.
Interesting. I mean,
I'm more looking. Of a build-up.
I've got the episode up now. I mean, I'm looking when they're kind of introduced. It's towards the end.
It is towards the end, yeah, but it just for some reason feels early.
It's at the 35-minute mark in a 42-minute episode.
I'm telling you, man, it feels early. It just feels early when you watch it. You're just like, what? And they're already there. I think maybe I would have wanted some shots where sort of we're hinting at the Daleks being there before, because I think maybe the way this episode is set up is it's like, oh yeah, game show. Who's the villain? Oh, it's Daleks. There's no sort of like big what's this? There's no sort of
See, I think
panning
there is.
camera.
I think there's. I
don't know.
I don't get that at all. I think it's really well built up because you don't know what's. All the characters are just placed into it. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening. They break out and we get all the teasers of like my masters, and all that. And then, like I said, 35 minutes in,
I just think I want more of that.
you get
more
the
of my
reveal.
masters. It's very quick.
I don't see it. Okay,
doesn't
fair
feel-
enough. I don't see it being quick
Maybe
at
it's
all.
not so much a timing issue as a pacing issue. I don't know. It's just when I was watching it, I just couldn't. They didn't. It felt like the wrong time for the Daleks to be there.
Oh, fair enough. I completely disagree with that. I think that introduced it at a perfect time. I wouldn't have wanted them at any other time, to be honest with you, because I think it would have felt weird.
I don't know if they should have been in this episode at all, to be honest.
Oh,
Maybe
let's
that's
see.
why.
Well,
Maybe that's why.
we'll get into that later when we talk about the arcs and everything. But I think who else? Oh, although interestingly, initially when they didn't realise if they could get the Daleks or not, or they didn't realise if they were going to make it the logistics of it work to have this many Daleks. It was going to be a Davros thing. That was going to be an initial plan. Details are vague on that, but it was going to be Davros was going to have a heavy impact on the story if they couldn't get the logistics worked out and the rights and everything. So
fair enough. That's interesting.
But maybe should have saved that for the trivia. But
but like, point.
Yeah, coming back to the game show thing then. Now I think the most common criticism this episode gets is the fact that watching it 17 years on, it is a little bit dated because we have Big Brother, The Weakest Link, What Not to Wear, Trinny and Susanna, and all that. Now, allow me to posit a defence with for this. Nostalgia is in at the moment. You've got all so many times every year.
Nostalgia's been in for the past decade, surely.
Well, yeah, but look, what I'm saying is every single year you get a channel reviving an old game show. Blankety Blank is now on TV again. In the future, I don't see the problem with this era of the human race reviving shows like Big Brother. I mean, that's happening now. Big Brother is coming back. It's been off the air for like 5 years. It's coming back. The Weakest Link, same deal. What Not to Wear, same deal. And I find it I find it quite interesting and to think about. Yeah, they probably would in that era of robots and everything try and cash in on that nostalgia. So we have the android and Trinny and Susanna and all that. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, it's a little bit dated, but it's I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it being too much of an issue given the kind of state we're in right now. Anyway, where TV is so kind of nostalgia reliant.
Yeah, I can see
what
that.
Say you?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose. I don't know. I don't think I have a particular issue with it. I think. Yeah, I think it's an odd premise, but I think it's it's interesting enough. I don't really have a problem with the specific show showed. I don't really have anything to say with that one really.
Fair enough, because like I said, that's always the thing that's levied against this. Like people's main criticism always seems to be that it is dated with that, and yeah, it is. You're watching it in 2005, you probably get a greater effect than you would now. But I still think a kid watching it now would probably just think, "Oh yeah, a game show."
Yeah, I mean,
they'd probably just take it as a game show. They wouldn't really recognise that it's a...
It makes an interesting point because when I was that age and when I was watching Doctor Who at the time, I really didn't like the 2000s. So I thought I thought growing up that in the 2000s, I've always thought it was a kind of ugly era for television and for fashion and all of that sort of thing. I've never liked the 2000s. I've kind of since calmed down about that, obviously. But I think when I was actually living in the 2000s, I really didn't like them. So that's something that definitely, when I was watching it back in the day, I did not like because it was just, oh god, Doctor Who's doing the 2000s really heavily now. Obviously, that's just something I don't really care about anymore. It's just TV, innit?
Fair enough.
It's just some TV shows.
Yeah. And I think just on the basic, very shallow surface level, I just think it's fun to be like, Weakest Link. And I'm so the android. obvious pun, yeah, but I just
Yeah,
think
alright,
it
innit?
works.
It's
I think
alright.
it's just funny.
I
It's
don't
just
think
really
it's any.
funny.
I think it thinks it's funnier than it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, having watched it, like, I didn't find it particularly. I was like, all right, you got the gimmick there. All right, it's just like, it wasn't particularly like mind blowing. I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is great. I was just like, okay,
Mm.
okay.
I don't know. I think it reminds me of other bits of the RTD camp that we've discussed throughout this series. It reminds me of stuff like the burping bin, where it's just like it's having a little knowing wink to the audience and a
It
little
just
bit.
didn't
Do
feel
you know
as
what I mean?
good. I feel like maybe I've gotten a bit tired of it now. I don't know.
Maybe.
I just feel like it wasn't as impactful for me. It was a bit of a nothing moment for me.
Which is your favourite of the three segments then? Because we have the Doctor on Big Brother, Rose on The Weakest Link, and Jack on What Not to Wear. Which do you think is the strongest of the three segments?
I think really, I don't think there's a right answer for that. I think you could probably make an argument for all of them. This is one of the least offensive parts of the episode, to be honest with you, and you can make some good points here, because I think I can say for definite that, actually, you know what? I'm going to slightly amend that. The Captain Jack bit is not very good at all. I don't think there's much to be gained from that, really. I think it's just a bit, oh, we need to do something, like we need to do a game show segment for Jack as well. It's like, it doesn't feel as like, with Rose, you're kind of having a bit of an interesting idea here, weakest link, but you die, and I think that segment is specifically really helped with the acting. I think the actors involved in those segments really do kind of sell it.
Oh, they're great, yeah.
It's probably one of Doctor Who's most solid performances. And then going to Big Brother, I think the best bit about that is not only the little remaining cast of the Big Brother, and of course Linda, who we will get onto, but I think the way the Doctor reacts to that situation, it kind of makes you want to just see a whole Doctor Who does Big Brother, like specifically the Doctor in Big Brother, because I think the Doctor's way of responding to that like social situation was actually quite interesting. Obviously, like artificially social, the way Big Brother is. I think that's interesting. I don't think any of these are like particularly like, oh my god, this is stellar or this is offensively bad. I think it's just, oh yeah, that's alright.
To be honest, with how toxic and trashy Big Brother is, I can see them going into that in the future.
I'd like to see them do it again, but properly.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting idea.
I agree with you. I think the weakest is absolutely the Jack segment. I something about that one's always rubbed me the wrong way, and now that we know what John Barrowman behaved like on set, I definitely think it's not aged the best. They did actually film it with proper nudity, by the way. I don't know if you know this. It was meant to be. They filmed it. It was going to be a nude shot from behind, but the BBC were like, "No, you can't show that." But it was filmed like he was properly naked. But that makes it a little bit uncomfortable, I think. I just think it's the one that's just there. It's most there for a comedic beat, I think. Whereas the other two are a bit more grim and they've got a bit more meat on the bones.
I think the bit that really irked me with the Captain Jack bit is that it's a very small moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was improvised, but I'm not going to say it was improvised because I don't want to like throw any wrong accusations out. Yeah, it's where Captain Jack goes up to, can't remember which one's bloody which with those robots, but he goes up to the one, and like while talking to it, he just goes up and grabs its boobs, and it's like, I know it's a robot, but it's like, what the hell? Like, that's some dodgy behavior. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it made me feel uncomfortable. Like watching, I was like, it's pretty grim, and it's like, also I think, I don't know what it is with New Who specifically, but this kind of fascination with seeing various male characters naked. It's just like, it's like, okay, Captain Jack's naked, cool. He's confident with his sexuality, and he's happy to be naked. That's fine, fair enough, mate. I don't know why we had to see it like multiple times. I don't know why it had to be like a whole segment. I think you could probably infer from Captain Jack's character anyway. I don't know why we had to see that. I'm sure many people out there, don't mind seeing that sort of thing on TV. But I just felt within Doctor Who's kind of thing, there's a time and place, and I just felt it wasn't for Doctor Who.
Fair enough.
It's just weird. I don't know.
So we have a few of the segments with the games as the episode kind of goes along. I really like that bit where I can't remember her name, the one gets evicted, and the Doctor's just, he's being very flippant. She'll make millions when she gets out. He's sat on the sofa, and then what happens, and he's like, "What was that?" Like, I think it's so kind of having that contrast between how flippant he is and how kind of real it is for the housemates. I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why I think that supports what I was saying earlier about that segment being underdeveloped. I'd like to see more of that because there's not really enough of it, and it's probably the most gut-wrenching part of the episode. It does actually cause me to feel a bit like unwell almost because it's so sad. I just wish there was a bit more of that really, and it was a bit more explored. Kind of forget about most of those characters after.
But I think that's why I think it's explored as well as it could be, because how much more could you get out of that, beyond what happens in the episode, which is the Doctor eventually breaks out and discovers what's going on. Like I think kill a few more off, and then it just becomes.
So hypothetically, imagine the story is the Doctor and the Big Brother contestants escaping. Right, they're now in a really interesting moral position. These three characters. Two extra characters. It's Linda and whatever the bloke's name was.
Yeah.
It's these three escaping, and Linda's already got an interesting enough story, but with two of them, I think it's kind of cool. You can now start to explore this idea of people who kind of think they're condemned. You could have them both having received, like obviously these reality shows like to stir up ideas in people. I think it would have been interesting that the vote's already taken place, but they're just taking a bit of time to decide. But they've sent both of them the letter, some sort of letter saying, "Oh yeah, you're gonna die," as a sort of way to shake things up.
Yeah.
And then you're exploring this idea of these two people who were genuinely had believed and had prepared themselves that they were condemned, who are now suddenly free, and they're like, "What the hell? What do I do now?" I think that would be interesting.
That's a good point.
That could be a whole story.
No, I do agree with that. That's a good point, actually. It would have been good, but
obviously it requires a bit of engineering the story. But I just think it's probably a more interesting avenue, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. But yeah, we also get to see kind of the crew in the control room. Now, I actually think I really like the way that these characters are set up. The way
two characters that are set up.
Yeah, but I think through those two characters, you get a good idea of how it kind of how that kind of work environment plays on the day to day. I think their dialogue's very strong, and I think it's very. It would be very easy to take the easy to take the easy route and kind of not develop any of them and just kind of have them as just muhaha kind of baddies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kind of very faceless figures. I think it's cool that it kind of sets that up and develops that. But yeah, I mean, what say you?
I think they're all right. I think it's kind of a sweet idea, isn't it? A bit of a, you could say a bit of a romance between them. It's quite low key. It's quite kind of realistic, I guess you could say. It's fair to say it's realistic. I think, again, it's another part that would be more interesting if it was a bit more developed. You kind of feel for them when I don't know what they're called. I don't remember them. But when she dies anyway, and then he goes crazy and starts shooting and stuff, you would feel a bit. You feel obviously in terms of the fact that it's like in general you there's a human connection there. Someone's just lost someone they love, and someone's just been died in a moment of hope and things like that. Those sorts of things, they're still going to affect you. But I think I would have liked to see those characters explored a bit more. I feel like that whole office thing would have been more interesting if it went on for a bit longer. Like the whole, it's quite similar to what the long game does. But just less developed. I think the long game does the same concept but better.
Right.
Just in my opinion, but that's my thoughts on that. There's not enough of it, I think, for me to be like, oh yeah, this is great.
Fair enough. No, I can see that. I guess. Yeah. No, I do know where you're coming from, but I just think how it kind of serves the story, I think, is pretty. I think it's fine. I don't. It's never kind of stood out to me as being particularly like egregiously underdeveloped or anything like that. Like, it has always just kind of worked for me, and it still kind of does. But
Fair enough. Fair enough.
so, and again, I think this episode does a really good job with the game shows, like kind of setting them up and kind of seeing how kind of trivial they are to our main leads, and then kind of whipping out the true nature and surprising them and kind of scaring the shit out of them. And I think it's done really well again with Rose, where she's laughing and joking through the weakest link, and then the woman gets lasered and shot, and she's like, "Oh shit, oh shit," you know what I mean? Like, it just it suddenly turns. I think it works really well. What can I say?
Fair enough.
I know. It's just always worked for me. And I like, up front, I like the long game. We said it before in that episode. The filler episode, or what could have been a filler episode, is it's ended up being used as a catalyst for the finale. I really, really like that.
Fair enough. I suppose for me, it's just like, I think it's fine. I think it's quite nice. I think it's interesting to have had something. I think it's a good idea to have like a bigger premise coming through later on. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. No, it's all right.
Yeah.
Relatively inoffensive. A lot of these points so far, I think, especially for the first bit of Bad Wolf, it's just relatively inoffensive to me. I'm not particularly bothered by it. It doesn't particularly annoy me, but it also doesn't particularly like please me. Do you know what I mean? It's just there.
I was gonna say, I feel as though we're gonna hit a point and it's gonna take a turn, but we'll get there.
We are. We're just we're on the very neutral bit where I just don't care for it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
That's probably the best bit.
The Doctor gets a would-be companion, and I know what
should
you're
have
gonna
been.
say.
Should have been.
I know what you're gonna say. With Linda with a Y, played by Jo Joyner.
She's so much better than Rose. She's so much better. In like 5 minutes, she's like show stealing.
She's lovely, isn't she? She's wonderful.
If I think, to be honest with you, what Rose looks for in the Doctor, what she kind of finds a little bit of in Captain Jack and later in the 10th Doctor, I think that's what the Doctor was looking for in Rose. He was looking for Linda, mate.
Looking for Linda.
I think Linda was the deserving companion. Episode 1 should have been Linda.
I think it's a great. I think she's instantly likable. You instantly want to see her go with the Doctor, and they do set that up, and it makes you think, oh shit, is this happening, kind of thing. Which is why I think her death in part 2 is even more heartbreaking, because you've grown to love the character. It hurts when she dies, but she's great. Jo Joyner's great as she's brings such a kind of personality and charm to the character.
Linda's really lovely. Linda's an underused character, underrated character, I'd say. I think I'd have loved to have seen her in more episodes. I think I'd have rather Linda to Captain Jack. She would have been a nice addition. Instead of Adam joining on Dalek, I think Linda joining on the long game might have been a nice idea. Obviously, I know there's a time difference, there's a 100-year difference.
No,
but that
okay.
Could have been quite sweet. I don't know.
No,
yeah, I've not much to say other than I do love Linda. Who doesn't?
Excellent. I was going to say that I don't think I've ever met a fan who doesn't like her.
You've actually got to be troubled if you don't like Linda, to be fair.
Yeah, right.
Sorry if you don't like Linda.
So we get the reveal of the Bad Wolf Corporation, which is a bit of a, if you've been paying attention throughout the series, all the references and stuff.
What was the point in calling it Bad Wolf, by the way?
What do you mean?
It seems it's so like stupid in terms of like the naming. We'll get to it when we get to it, but I just don't get why the hell that's the word that's chosen.
What would you have called it?
No thing relevant, like "Oi Rose, go back in the past" or something. Like an actual message that Rose could have used.
It sticks in your mind though, Bad Wolf. It's a memorable phrase. It properly sticks in your mind.
Yeah, it's probably why absolutely nothing to do with anything.
It's probably why they've used it as the production company name for the new stuff.
Yeah, well, it's fine for a production company. That's interesting. I don't get it within the narrative of the story. Like, I don't get later on how we'll get to it, but I don't get how Rose, but he manages to read into Bad Wolf the way she does. Anyway.
Well, doesn't it come from Gwyneth going the big bad wolf and all that?
Well, yeah, but what about it?
Isn't that kind of a time loop thing where it kind of goes around and that gives Rose the idea?
That seems like a bit of a vague conclusion, though. It's a bit like, I don't know, anything could have been that. I don't know. Just doesn't seem like a big deal. Doesn't seem like a word that would instantly call to mind the exact actions that Rose then later on does, you know? I maybe if I was in Rose's position, I'd see Bad Wolf and okay, full disclosure, maybe it's just I'm an idiot, but I would just, if I was in Rose's position, I'd have just sat there and seen Bad Wolf. I'd be like, shit, that's weird. Well, I wouldn't. I'd have probably known that it was something to do with some sort of time thing, but I'd be like, well, what does this? What the fuck do I do with this information? You know, like.
I mean, I guess that works.
If someone randomly came up to you and you kept hearing, I don't know, lost deer for like I don't know, a year, you just kept seeing it everywhere. You'd be thinking, what the hell? But I don't think at any critical moment of your life you'd suddenly be like, I know exactly what that means. You know?
Yeah, but isn't it meant to be like, because the corporation's name is Bad Wolf, so Rose in the end scatters that all throughout the universe, so that when the Bad Wolf Corporation is revealed in this, the Doctor and Rose are like, oh yeah, shit, something's up. Isn't that the point of it? Because they'll recognise the name and be like, oh, hang on, something's deadly.
Well, I get that as a point.
Before.
I don't get how later on that... We'll get to it, but it's to do with Parting of the Ways specifically. I don't get how
just say it now because
Rose
we're talking
uses...
about Bad Wolf.
That's a good use for it, yeah. I just don't get how it extrapolates beyond that.
Well, what do you mean? Like the...
Well, Rose is sat... We'll have to skip to this bit, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to explain.
If we're talking about Bad Wolf, we'll talk about, we'll just talk about the whole thing, but...
Yeah, well, when Rose goes to... when Rose is sat there, I think in the parking lot or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And she sees Bad Wolf kind of sprayed across the ground, and she sees it on the back of the wall or whatever. And she's like, that's it! I need to go back and do... It was like, what? Like, I don't get how she's come to that conclusion. I'll try and find the bit.
Because I know what bit you're talking about. I think it's just...
Find out what she, I just want to specifically find what she said at that point.
I think it's just for her to kind of go... that it's a sign that I need to go back, right?
That's
how I've taken it.
It's such a loose thing. It feels like it's like a subjective interpretation more than anything.
I've got it up here. So she sees the Bad Wolf graffiti all over the place. They go, yeah, it's over here as well. It's been there for years. It's just a phrase, just words.
Words.
I thought it was a warning.
Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's a message. The same words written down now and 200,000 years in the future. It's a link between me and the Doctor. Bad Wolf here, Bad Wolf there.
Yeah.
But if it's a message, what's it saying? It's telling me I can get back. How is she? That's like...
Because it's a sign. It's a... because it's got... She says Bad Wolf here, Bad Wolf there. So she takes that as it's a sign I've got to get back. It's a bloody big coincidence if that Bad Wolf there is the same Bad Wolf as the corporation.
But it could mean a number of things. It could mean this is the serendipity of life. Welcome to this loop. Here is your reminder of what was. It could mean a lot of things. It could be this is a message telling me I'm forsaken. It could mean a lot of things.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it spurs her on to go, I've got to get back because this is a hell of a coincidence and this is a sign that I need to get back. Which then factors in because it's a message from her to...
But what if it was more like an omen, I feel like... Let's just, for a second, imagine, reinterpret it as an omen, right? You see the Bad Wolf after you've been sent back. And you might look at it and you might think to yourself, what if this is actually just telling me, this is it. This is the life I've led. This is what I've got to know. This is my kind of sentence. This is what's been placed upon me. This is the Bad Wolf. In which case, it's not a message that's telling me to go back. It's a message telling me to accept my fate. And it would be equally valid. Because
yeah, but that's looser than the other one.
I don't think so. I think
Rose being the optimist she is.
I just feel like it's not like Look,
it'd be weird if Rose gave up. She's an optimist. She's a fighter. She sees that and goes, "I'm going to take this in the positive way, in the positive message, and I'm going to go and."
Look, I'm not a fan of Moffat arcs, but when he has, for instance, the Doctor falls, or no, Gallifrey falls rather, and then he says Gallifrey falls no more. It's logical. It's part of a sentence, and then it comes together and it makes sense. It's about that whatever that hell crap he was on about, but it does, it's quite clear what it's trying to say. It's Gallifrey Falls No More means it's going to come back, or whatever you want to say about it.
Yeah.
This is not so clear at all. This is really ambiguous, and it just seems convenient to me that it's Rose's specific interpretation of Bad Wolf, and she's very lucky.
She's not lucky because she knows herself. She knows what she'll take from it. It's a message from her to herself from the future. She knows herself, and it doesn't mean anything to anyone else. Mickey says, "Oh, it's just been there for years. Just leave it. It means nothing," because Rose knows herself better than anyone. She knows how she'll take it.
Does she know herself though? I mean, she's always, she seems absolutely confused on who she is throughout the whole thing. And even
well enough to know how she'll take a Bad Wolf message. Like I get what you're saying about why shouldn't she take it as a negative thing, but I would get that. But I would get that if it was somebody else sending it to Rose, but it's Rose sending it to herself. She knows exactly how she's going to take it.
But could it not also be like a message of, oh, you've had a good one, to be fair. Enjoy that. That was a lovely experience. Go on
I know.
Live a good life.
I know exactly what you're saying.
That specific reading, I find it so confusing that she got to that point.
I know exactly what you're saying, because Rose has already been there when she sent the message, she knows how she's going to take it, so therefore she knows that she must send that message to herself. Because it's a time travel thing. She's already been there, she knows how she's going to take it. She knows herself, she knows how she's going to react to it.
That becomes so paradoxical, though.
More paradoxical than anything else in Doctor Who, though.
Well, no, but I mean, okay, consider this, right? So when have you ever read something that you've written when you were a child, for instance, or when you were very young? When there's been a significant gap between things you've written?
Yeah.
And you've read something and you thought, what the hell was I talking about?
Yeah.
Is it not possible she could have been in the same position? I think, most people, at our age probably understand ourselves pretty okay. We kind of understand how we think to some extent and what have you. But I still don't know what the hell I meant in some of the things I wrote when I was younger.
But this isn't Rose when she was younger. This is the gap between Rose doing that and her sending the message is about an hour.
God, I mean, fair enough, but I don't know. I suppose to me, it's not. Just doesn't quite stick that landing. Maybe I don't know. It's not.
No, I get what you're saying.
Watertight enough for me.
I get what you're saying. I just take issue with the logic there because I would understand if it was anyone else sending the message, but it's Rose knowing herself.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. That I understand that. Like,
she does it just because she knows what's going to happen because she's already lived it.
Maybe it's because for me as an audience member, maybe my expectation is that I've always thought as an audience member that a more interesting way to piece together a mystery is if you could feasibly solve it before you got to that point, before like the actual event of the purpose of it happened. This does not give you that opportunity. Maybe that's just a question of what I expect in television.
I understand.
I don't know.
No, I'm not trying to discount it.
No, I know. I'm personally just not convinced by that. It's not watertight enough for me, I guess.
Fair enough, I guess. So we have the Bad Wolf stuff. We then have the Controller. What do you think of the Controller? Because that's an interesting character.
She's very dark for Doctor Who.
Very dark, yeah.
Especially later on. I didn't realise this until I watched it today. But my God, the SFX when she's kind of freed from her wires, the little wounds she's got on her, geez, that's twisted.
Yeah, a bit grim, isn't it? Yeah.
It's really fucked up for Doctor Who.
It's an interesting.
It's one of those images I really hated as a kid, and I think.
Same, yeah.
I don't think it's right for Doctor Who. I think it's maybe an interesting idea in and of itself, but I don't think it's right for Doctor Who. It's an okay idea. It's within. I think to be fair with you, even if I think a lighter version of that is probably right for Daleks. I think it does make sense. It's the sort of thing they would do.
Yeah.
But it's just that I think it's a little too violent for Doctor Who. Maybe not to be a Mary Whitehouse about it. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't mind it,
No,
but it is quite intense imagery.
you're a big fan of like the Virgin New Adventures, though, right? Like I know they're books and not TV, but
Well, the thing for me with the Virgin New Adventures is
like they go in far darker places than this.
here's the thing. I was thinking about this the other day. So with the Virgin New Adventures, one of the key considerations is that basically it's Doctor Who with absolutely no restrictions on creativity.
Yeah.
And that can come with really great strengths, but also really bad caveats. It's like a playground. It's a sandbox for Doctor Who. I don't know if every single time with the Virgin New Adventures you're getting a perfect Doctor Who, if you know what I mean. But what you are getting is the opportunity to push ideas. And that's why I think they work really well not as television episodes, and why I think they work really well as the books that they are.
Yeah.
So, and you do once in a while you get an absolute banger, Time Worm Revelation, Nightshade. Those books are really, really, really good. But sometimes you get stuff like Time Worm Genesis, which kind of has like 13-year-old sex priestesses and stuff like that. I mean, I understand on one hand it's like, okay, this guy's trying to explore this part of history and stuff like that, but I don't really want to, that's a bit gross,
It's all a bit dodgy, isn't it?
I certainly wouldn't want to see that on the TV.
No.
You're allowing yourself sort of that difference, I suppose. It comes with its problems, the New Adventures, but it's an opportunity to explore new ideas. But for the TV series, I think you have to play the game a bit differently. You need to be experimental, but you need to be aware of those restrictions and what's good and what's not, and what would suit kind of mainline TV Doctor Who, because it's a slightly different thing. I think that's probably what makes a difference for me versus the New Adventures.
Fair enough. I guess I'm just surprised, given your taste in Doctor Who generally, that this was a step too far for you. But
well, this is the thing. I think it's worth articulating at this point what my taste in Doctor Who is. I think it's quite important because I'll get to a point later when I start to talk about one of my problems with this story is I think it's too dark, which sounds ridiculous coming from me.
Too dark.
And
I was going to say coming from you, Christ.
Well, the thing is for me is that I think what needs to be understood is what I like in Doctor Who, and it's melancholy, where I think the best word is maybe bittersweet, where there is a loss, but there is also love or goodness to be gained. I mean, Father's Day is a great example. So it's a sad story. Pete's never going to really live, is he? He's always he's doomed to die. You can't change that nature, but you are able to kind of come out of it with newfound love, newfound respect. You've made that death. You've amended that death through a very divine way. You've made that death more kind of, you've gained something personally from it. So it's sad. It's it's pretty brutal, but it's a loving and touching kind of melancholy, and I think that's the perfect tone for Doctor Who. When you get to just what we see late in this, where it's just cold, dark, grungy, killing upon killing upon killing, there's no. We'll get to it later on, but it's just I don't think it's the same. We're not dealing with the same sort of darkness, quote unquote, as we are.
I can wow. I think there's so much hope and joy to come out of the end of this.
I firmly disagree, but we will get on.
What? Oh God. Okay. Because I mean, yeah, we'll get onto it. But I mean, I'm just like, how much I hate like grim darkness for the sake of grim darkness. Like, I have ranted to you many a time about my problems with things like Batman v Superman and things like that, where it's just unrelentingly grim with no point to it all.
That's how I feel about this episode, man. This is how I feel about this. I don't
get that at all. This gives me so much hope and inspires me, and just
absolutely,
I don't get it at all. I mean, I guess we'll get into it when we come to the inciting incident, but
it's so bleak. It's so bleak. It depresses me. I watch it and I feel less hopeful. I have to say.
You feel less hopeful.
I feel resigned to my fate watching that, and I'm not even joking. I'm not
even compared to something like Genesis of the Daleks, which I'm not slagging off. It's great, but it's bleak as fuck.
I think Genesis of the Daleks is more hopeful. I think it proves that despite evil existing, The Doctor,
Yeah, in the
hope tried and hope continues, and we know, because we know the future, we know things are going to be okay. I just think,
we
and
get
also
that
the
with this.
well, not quite. I think it hinges on Rose in this. I will explain. I suppose.
Okay.
I suppose. Shall we continue with the story before
Yeah,
we get
we'll
to that? 'Cause
continue with
it mainly comes
okay.
towards the ending. It mainly comes towards the ending.
Right. Okay. Sorry, it's caught me off guard that. Yeah, so this, that, and the other, we get a few little few bits of fun with the Doctor eventually finding Jack and then meeting up and everything. And then we get Rose's quote unquote death.
God. I wish it was real, to be fair. It would actually save this story. Seriously.
Oh, God. I think this whole scene is done fantastically. I love how when they all get arrested, the Doctor is just numb. He doesn't put up a fight. He doesn't. He doesn't. Oh my God! It's just so good the way he's just literally numb with the shock that he's just. This girl he swore to protect has just died.
Yep.
19 years old. All that's brilliant, right? And we get a little reference to Frontier in Space with the lunar penal colonies. They're going to take him to the same place that they were going to take him in.
I thought it was. I heard it and it reminded me, but I wasn't sure if it was the same one. Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's meant to be the same ones.
Oh,
so
nice.
They're going to take him there.
Best part of the episode, mate.
I don't know. It's not meant to be funny, but I've always found Eccleston's mugshot quite funny. It's the way he casually turns his head. I don't know. I find it quite funny.
I think it's quite sinister because there's so much shadow on his face. He does look quite creepy.
Yeah.
It's just the way they've lit his face. It's quite an unsettling image.
And we get the sound effect again reminds me a bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which probably doesn't help with the sinister aspect of it, is it? Do you get what I mean though? Like the I know the photo being taken. It just makes me. I don't know. But yeah, get a prison break, which is always good fun.
Yeah.
In Doctor Who.
It's
a bit quick. But... Yeah, but I don't really mind that considering what we're heading up to.
Yeah,
what we're about to get into, which I think is because we get all the stuff with them kind of taking over the control room and all that. I kind of want to get into the cliffhanger, which I think is one of the best cliffhangers Doctor Who's ever done.
What? Okay, go on.
I think it's incredible.
Oh, she's kidding me, alright.
Okay, you say your problems with it, and I'll defend it.
It's let me just make sure I'm talking about the same thing as you. Just where Rose is saying I'm gonna come, where Dr. Rove is gonna say I'm gonna come get you.
Yeah.
And, it's just cheesy, man. It's just so like, it's where the new series I think in general falls on its face. Because it does this, I to this day do not understand why this is popular in Doctor Who. You know, shoot me, I don't get it. It's always this idea of like, I'm the Doctor and I do this and I'm gonna do this and your life means... I just can't stand it. Like, why are you making a speech of it?
No, I agree there.
I'm gonna save your life. It's like, oh, shut up.
I agree there, but this doesn't feel... Like, because I agree, when we get to Capaldi... And it's not Capaldi's fault, obviously. It's just when they make
Smith
him.
Even.
Oh yeah, but I'm talking more specifically about those, like his regeneration speech, Capaldi's, when he goes off on this weird tangent about pairs and children, like stuff like that.
I think that's weird, but it's nowhere near as egregious as say Matt Smith's. But here, I think with relation to this, I just don't like that sort of dialogue. I think for some reason people think it's really good. I don't get this idea of declaring. Kind of in this weird kind of grand triumphant way declaring yourself. I don't understand it. It's like people who go, I'm gonna make a stand, that sort of thing. It's just like, shut up.
I know exactly what you mean, but I think in this it works.
No, it just makes him come across like an arsehole. He just sounds like a twat. That's what I think.
Oh my god! What, like when he said, "I'm going to wipe every last stinking Dalek out of the sky."
It's just so speech. That's all right, but the rest of it, just all this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that, and this is gonna happen, and no, and it's just can't be arsed.
No, I know exactly what you mean because I have the same issues with the dialogue later, but this feels perfectly natural to me.
No,
this feels like his anger has reached its peak, and it's
I'm
just
telling
like...
you, in this episode specifically, I've got a problem with it.
I don't get that at all.
I find it so typically speechy and preachy. I can't stand it. It's one of those things I'm really glad the Whittaker era kind of finally rid us of. There's a lot less of that.
Did we get rid of that though?
There's at least
Earth
less
is protected by me and my mates this year and every year.
Fair. All right, you got me there.
Yeah,
but
it's
just,
still there.
I think there's a lot less of it though. But
I do get your point.
I don't like it. It's not in the classic era. This is the thing. McCoy doesn't do that.
No, but
I understand. I understand a bit of eulogizing, but it's just in the new series, it's this idea that like they've sort of flipped an old stereotype on its head. Villains like to do their evil speeches before they take over the world. I think from the Russell T Davies era onwards, there's this idea that the hero does his great speech before he wins. He's got to tell the villain exactly this is what's going to go down now. I just think it's so stupid.
But this one in particular reminds me more of something like Trial of a Time Lord, where 10 million years of absolute power and all that, and
I think it works better in Trial. Trial's all about the theatrics though, and it works within that context. It doesn't work within a serious scene where a man is confronted by the enemy that slaughtered his whole people. And now he's in this moment where he's having to converse with something he thought, he'd killed and made the ultimate sacrifice, only to find out that, this sacrifice almost was in vain. And he's bloody eulogizing. Are you serious?
Yeah, because he's letting his anger out. Because he starts off trying to play the fool and be the doctor. He's going, oh, hello, and all that. And he goes, no, this is what's going to happen. Because it's his anger reaching its peak.
I just think it's silly.
Not even the bit where the... Okay, go on.
I just think it's silly. I can't. I think it's jarring, given that a lot of this era tries to give you quite a grounded tone, and the new series tries that in general. It doesn't. It would work if it was an overall very theatrical thing, and everything was along those lines, but it's not. It tries to present itself in a grounded way, so you kind of just have these random moments in there, and it's just they take you out of it way too much for me.
Not even the bit where the Dalek threatens him and he goes no, and then the music hits and they all look at him and it's like this choreographed that, like, not even that gets you.
The no bit's fine. That's some McCoy era shit. I'll take that. I just don't like the kind of the eulogizing afterwards.
Fair enough, because that bit gives me goosebumps every single time. That bit's one of my favourite TV moments ever, where the music hits, they all look at him. I just think it's fantastic.
It's pretty alright. It's some McCoy era shit. I think I'd have preferred it slightly differently, but I can definitely get behind that. What I can't get behind is just the I'm gonna do this now. Even in this episode, it's so bad. I don't know who thinks it's a good idea to write that sort of dialogue. If you're thinking
I mean, like I
Russell,
said,
if you've got a chance to edit the script still, get rid of those, because I know you've put them in there. I know Shooty's going to be saying something like that. Get them out of there, son, yeah? I bet he's listening to that podcast. I bet you love that.
Thing is, I know exactly what you're saying, because I have the same issues later on, but in this one, I don't think it really... Because I somewhat agree, even like the stuff in... Because obviously I'm the RTD fanboy here, but I even agree in stuff like Voyage of the Damned, with all that. Like, I'm the Doctor, I'm from Planet Gallifrey, I'm the man who's going to save your life.
Barcelona.
I even agree to a point with that, but in this, I don't think it feels like that at all, because I think it's more. He's actually talking to someone. He's properly confronting the villain, and he's gonna save his companion, and he's angry as fuck. Whereas I feel like later on, it starts to come out of nowhere, and I completely get what you mean. Like in Voyage of the Damned, for example, I think that whole thing that everyone loves to quote comes out of nowhere. But in this, for me, it's I don't mind it at all.
I don't know. It's just not. It's not for me, mate. It's really not for me.
Fair enough. But and the reveal of the fleet, does that not? And the whole exterminate, which bleeds into the theme.
It's alright. Don't really have many views on it. I think it's a bit. I think
You
when
feel nothing when watching that.
Not really. The thing is for me is it's like,
oh my god,
you've had an episode earlier where you've got the Dalek on its own, been threatening.
Yeah.
Now there's tons of them. It's like, all right, okay. So you know, because you're watching Doctor Who, you're like, well, yep, okay, a big army is gonna get wiped out. It doesn't really.
You're right, but we've
really
seen what one of these things can do.
Yeah, but you know that as soon as they've put about 500,000, I think it was, wasn't they? You know that threat is diminished. It's the kind of the Dalek theorem, right? The danger of a Dalek can be diminished based on the amount of Daleks in an episode. So if there are 500,000 Daleks, the threat of a Dalek is diminished by 500,000.
Well, yeah, but like I never got this point in general. Like when people say this, oh, well, the villain's going to be defeated, and I'm like, well, yeah, but why bother watching anything ever then? Because you know that where you know that the good guys are going to win in the end.
I suppose it's just because you know that to my mind anyway, a villain, I think a villain that provides more threat, it's not because the villain has to win. It's because the bigger the threat, the more the character has to go up against.
Which I think is valid with this. Look how much everyone goes up against.
Well,
Half of them fucking die.
Well, that's exactly my problem. Everyone gets fucked over. That's about it. They don't like.
Right.
I don't know how to describe it for you.
But they're still going through hell. Like, I don't get your point. You're saying that you don't want them to.
We'll get to it. It's to do with the ending. That'll all be its own discussion. I just think that the in this scene in particular with the 500,000 Daleks, I don't know, mate. It's not really kind of changing my. It's not sort of making me go, Dalek.
I get you.
Daleks don't really, for me. They don't. Once you have like a huge fleet of warships, it's like, well, I think it might partially be to do with the fact that kind of later on, how they're treated later on. They're pretty good when they're invading the actual base. That's pretty good. They're not so good as a fleet. The fleet itself isn't very interesting. They launch a couple of missiles in parting of the ways that don't really do much. They do a bit of bombing, which is the best bit they do because it actually has some threat. And otherwise, they just sort of hang around. But we'll get to it.
I know, it just reminds me of the whole thing where people are saying, well, the Timeless Children takes all the tension out of any Doctor Who story because the Doctor will be alright. And I'm like, well, no shit. Unless it's a regeneration story, he's going to be alright. Like, I've never got that complaint either because I just think, well, who watches Doctor Who going, oh, but I really hope the Doctor fucking dies in this one.
Not gonna lie, when I was a kid, I really wanted the baddies to win in Doctor Who sometimes. I just thought it'd be interesting.
Of course you did.
When I used to play with my Doctor Who figures when I was a child, and the way I used to play the narrative is the Daleks would always win.
So you like that, but you don't like the fact that people die here?
Well, I'll explain that later on. Like I said,
Right.
I'm holding off on that.
Okay.
It's not because they die. We'll get to it.
Okay, well, to round off part one, that cliffhanger, I fucking love it. It's one of my favourite bits of TV ever because it's so fucking epic and gives me goosebumps every time. Right, part two.
And I think it's shit. Anyway, let's go.
Part two. So, parting of the ways. The Daleks are established by this point. We get that really, I think it holds up really fucking well, that action sequence in the in space where the Daleks are firing missiles and the TARDIS is dodging it. I think that CGI looks great. I think it holds up really well. And from an X trick, they have the shield from Boomtown, tying Boomtown in again. It's tying in what could have been a filler episode in, which I think is brilliant. Yeah, I think all that's great. What do you think?
I don't know. It's a bit of an anticlimactic scene to have immediately after. I think this is actually a great explanation. This is a great chance to actually discuss my problem with that cliffhanger, in a way, because so you've had this setup, big Dalek fleet. You go in, and immediately the Doctor's able to fucking waltz past the Dalek fleet in about 2.5 seconds. You know, he just heads to the missile, bang, oh, no, never mind, he's fine. And he just kind of goes straight in. There's no... It doesn't feel like a barricade. It feels like he just kind of waltzed in. Because the way Parting of the Ways goes is like this. It goes, the Doctor walks in, has a chat with the Emperor, goes back outside, takes Rose with him while he's at it, goes back inside, and then they all get mowed down while he has a chat with the Emperor again. It's, you know... I don't really...
Yeah, if you boil it down to, like, specifics.
A bit boring, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can do that to a lot of Doctor Who stories, Gav.
Well,
you can do that to it. You can do that to a lot of boiling it down to the Doctor has a chat, the Doctor goes here, the Doctor goes back and has a chat.
Yeah, but he's not. But you've got a fucking fleet, and all you're doing with it is making him have a chat with it. He's having a chat with a fleet. Great.
Words win wars, Gav.
But you know, I also want compelling TV.
This is okay, right? Okay.
I don't want boring TV where people die for an hour, and I just go, all right.
There's okay.
We'll get to it.
Well, okay. So he goes on the Dalek saucer, right? He's materialised into there. We have that great bit where the Daleks try and shoot the TARDIS, and the Doctor comes out all confident. You know, it's great. Nil point. Then he goes back in the TARDIS, and he's doing the facade of smiling at him and being cocky and confident. And I'm sorry, you've got to admit this bit's amazing. When the shot of him inside as the Daleks are firing on the TARDIS, and he's just there, and his face just drops as soon as he goes in the TARDIS, and he's in complete despair at the door.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
You've got to admit
that's fine.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah?
A lot of this, I have to say, just to break up the monotony of me being grumpy the whole time, a lot of this is shot really well. I don't want to deny the fact that it's a well shot episode of Doctor Who.
Well, it's Joe Ahern, isn't it?
Both of these, yeah.
Coming back again.
They're both really well shot episodes, these two parts. Just to throw in a bit of niceness there. Anyway, back to negativity.
I'm glad. What do you think about the TARDIS material? Because this blew my mind as a kid. The TARDIS materialising around the Dalek. I think it's a great image.
I don't know. It's a cool idea. I mean, I wish there was a bit more with it, but yeah, it's not. It just feels like a bit of that happened. Oh, that's a bit quirky. And that sort of just ends.
Just a cool
It's a hashtag quirky moment for Doctor Who. That's about all I can say for it. It's a bit
I wouldn't say it's hashtag quirky.
It's just a thing. It just happens, like whatever.
If Jack had been too late with that gun, they all would have been dead.
The TARDIS's state of grace or whatever. Well,
I'm not going to talk about that because Earthshock.
I like Earthshock. Yeah, I was going to say I'm not going to talk about that because I like Earthshock.
That rule has always been a bit bollocks.
Yeah, that is a silly rule.
I was watching.
I don't know.
I was watching the other day. I think it was the Armageddon Factor. Part of my marathon.
It's a good episode, that.
Oh, it's shit. But something happens in the TARDIS, and they call the Doctor out, and they're like, "Wasn't it in the state of temporal grace?" And he sort of avoids the question. So I think it's kind of been retconned that temporal grace thing is just the Doctor being full of shit to disarm Aldrad in Hand of Fear, because that's the first time it's referenced, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's just the Doctor bullshitting his way through life again.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know. I just think, like, okay. I don't know.
I just get vexed when people bring up that point to kind of discount anything, because it's like, it's a load of bollocks.
No,
and
yeah.
they've said it's a load of bollocks in the show.
Yeah, sometimes I don't like it when the new series starts saying it's a load of bollocks, when it was fine in the classic, but the classic does call it out.
Yeah, I was going to say the classic did it, so
if the classic calls it out, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Right, okay. So, I think this is really powerful. This is the Doctor having... Well, at this point, he thinks he's wiped out his own race and the Daleks. This is him discovering that, actually, that was all for nothing. The Daleks survived and the Time Wars died for nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really powerful place to put this character in. To have him having gone through this whole series and having bettered himself and having reached that point pretty much there, to have it all destroyed down in front of him again. The time it was all for nothing. Very powerful, that.
Underexplored, but yeah.
Is it though? I mean...
Yeah. Yes. I'm just going to say it's underexplored. There's not enough screen time spent on it. It's an interesting proposal. Not enough time spent on it.
Alright. Okay, fair enough. Right, Big Daddy himself. They survived through me. Excellent.
They survived through me.
Dalek
Excellent,
Emperor.
excellent.
Right, what say you?
I really like him as a character. I think he's interesting. I like his delusional thing. I'd have liked to see more of him. It's a shame he dies at this point.
Yeah.
I think the Emperor should have persisted as a recurring enemy. I don't see why they were doing stupid shit with Davros and the Cult of Skara later. But as this episode really burns him out. You know, he's obviously there's not much to say about him in Bad Wolf, but in Parting of the Ways, it's just this constant slow regression. He's threatening, and then he's kind of less threatening because all he's doing is talking, and then he's kind of less threatening because he realizes all he cares about, he's a bit of a joker. He's just trying to, like, I don't know, catch the Doctor out. Oh, got you there. Hey, look at your morals. See, got you. And then after a while, he's just sort of screaming about how cool he is, and then he doesn't even get a chance to be like, oh yeah, I actually am pretty based. He's just, I don't know, he's just kind of regressed, and then obviously we get to the ending where he's just basically any old piece of shit that could have been removed with the kind of Thanos snap. So it's quite sad, really. It's quite a sad character progression because he gets less and less power throughout the episode, and it just makes him, you know, ramps the episode down and down and down for him. I think it's unfortunate.
Point, counterpoint. Aside from the design being cool as fuck, and
not really, but go on.
But not that. Wait till I finish my point. Aside from the design being cool as fuck, and the big battle that takes place at the end of it, the original Emperor Dalek from Power of the Daleks,
Evil. Sure.
Evil, sorry. What does he really do? Apart from, like, this one doesn't.
It's true. It's a true point. I think one thing is obviously he's the Emperor's appearance doesn't diminish through time in Evil of the Daleks. It's pretty intense the whole way through because he has this kind of vice grip on the Doctor in terms of getting him to do stuff, and then the Doctor has to kind of slowly wriggle out of it. The other thing is, even if you do want to make a point on that front, you can counter that point by saying, well, surely if Evil of the Daleks has a portrayal of the Emperor that could be better, which I think, yeah, it's probably true, does that not mean you should probably improve from it, lads, and not try to kind of just do the same thing again?
See, I think this does improve on it, though, because I think the personal stakes are stronger.
I think it's less interesting. I think Evil of the Daleks, especially with the novelization added onto it, although, you know, I know obviously that can be a bit... That's to you. That's to your discretion with it. How you feel about me including that in my argument. I think Evil of the Daleks has this lovely finality to it because we kind of... I've always headcanoned it anyway, but I think at the time it was obviously considered the last Dalek story. And you've got this Emperor who's really down on his luck, really, to be honest with you. And he's really mucking about with anything he can at this point. And he knows he's fucked. And he knows he's not going to do well. But he's doing this last kind of cold, weakened effort. He's not like the Emperor in Parting of the Ways who has built his strength up and is now ready to strike. He's now at his prime. This is an Emperor who's been beaten time and time again by the Doctor, and it's his last kind of vain hope, his last chance to grasp for it. It's an interesting character. It's a Dalek that has kind of is retroactively been present in all the episodes before then, and is retroactively, or not really retroactively, but is present, implied to be present throughout all of the John Pertwee stories. He's an interesting character. And knowing his presence is in all those episodes, even if it is a retroactive and then later kind of background choice for John Pertwee's Dalek stories, making him this kind of force, this representation of the general Dalek ideology that the Doctor has struggled against for so long, is a really interesting direction for him. Whereas this character, this Emperor, has the potential to do that, and at the beginning is a really great idea. This idea of this kind of perversion of the Dalek idea into this sort of godlike insanity, the natural progression of such a xenophobic regime. It doesn't do enough of it for me to warrant that sort of oh yeah, this is just as good or better. I think it's at best about the same, because all he does is kind of has that idea for a bit and then it goes, which to my mind is not as good. I think the evil emperor holds on to that, the idea that it's representing throughout the story. The parting of the ways emperor just loses and loses and loses more of that kind of idea as it goes.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm biased because I think Evil of the Daleks is very overrated, but that's just me.
I think more so in the character. I just think more trying to isolate those two characters.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, I still disagree because
them.
I think the Emperor Dalek reaches his peak with the Coward or Killer scene, which is pretty much his final scene.
But it's just, to me, I just think it's so un-Dalek-like.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I get that, obviously, in a way, these Daleks have been kind of perverted in a way, you know? Obviously they are slightly more insane, but to reduce an Emperor to nothing more than a mouthpiece by the end of it.
I don't think he is, though. Okay.
Oh, yeah, well, he kind of is, because he's just kind of talking to the Doctor, you know? He's just kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm going to challenge your morals, mate. You know, it's like, well, okay.
That's interesting to me. Like, come on, like...
I think the Emperor should be the great force that dictates it all, you know.
Right.
You know, he's arrogant and gloating and uncaring and uninterested in the opinions of, you know, these people. They're not... These are just, you know, mere little wriggly organisms that he just wants to get rid of, you know. Who cares what they think and feel? He's grand, he's beyond that, you know. And that's what makes him, you know, such a baddie, because obviously... You know, as humans, we know that life is important and it's precious and we should take care of it. And so you're struggling against this force that's so massive, it's basically pretending you're not even there. You know, and instead you've got this sort of emperor who sits there and is very interested in this one bloke. And it's like, well...
Yeah, because of the Time War. Do you not find it interesting that the Daleks are now... They hate themselves, they're self-loathing? Do you not find that interesting? Because
they not always sort of self-loathing anyway? Yeah,
but this is inherent now into these Daleks' genetic makeup with the humanity in it. They hate their makeup. Like, they hate everything that they're built.
It's not really explored very much. It's kind of just said. They're kind of like, oh, yeah, you're part human, so you kind of hate yourself, so you've created this religion idea about it. It's like, okay. I don't know. It's not really... I don't think it's particularly effective. I think the Daleks here, I hear a lot of discourse that people go, oh, the last time the Daleks were threatening was Parting of the Ways. I don't really think they're that threatening in this.
I think they are.
When they're invading the base, they're threatening. The Emperor himself is not really. He feels very detached from the Dalek forces that are actually attacking. He's just weird. I don't know. I like him at the beginning of his appearance as he goes forward. Once he gets to the Coward or Killer, it's just like, okay.
Do you
you're monologuing for the Doctor, basically. Thanks.
Do you like the idea that the Daleks have become mythologized? That Roderick, in particular, is like, they don't exist, and then they all come in and they fucking murder them all, and he's still to the very end, he's like, you don't exist. Like, that's powerful, right? Like, that's an interesting...
I think it's classic Parting of the Ways underexplored syndrome. I think it's there and it's a neat idea, but there's just not enough of it for me to be like, oh yeah, that's good.
Okay.
They don't do enough. You've only got, like, what is it? 90 minutes. And there's just not enough of any of this for me, mate.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Oh, God. I mean, just keeping on that theme then. You mentioned that they were threatening when they take over everything. Like,
yeah. So
you like all the battle stuff, I presume, when they've all got machine guns and it's all like, you know.
Yeah, I think as a series of scenes, it's effective. I think what it means later on is the big problem, but I think as a series of scenes, it's a great show of kind of humanity's kind of willingness to fight against all odds. You know, I think that's always a great thing to know. You know,
because
that human struggle.
Because I love all of this. I love the whole thing where the chances of survival like it is getting lower and lower, but this kind of ragtag group of survivors led by the Doctor, they're trying to survive through this and make their way through this, and they're making all these defenses and everything. I love all that. I think it's great. I think it's really good.
Fair enough. I think it's all right. I just think it's like I think it's a good show. I really at this point I found myself getting really sick of the setting. Um, the whole aesthetic of this area was really grating on me at this point. I think it's worth just something I wanted to bring up at this point. It's just so. I know it probably works in favor of the themes. It's just not fun to watch. It's just so unrelentingly like horrid to look at. Like it's actually like
That's
so
the
ugly.
point, though.
I know it's the point, but it's.
I just find all this.
I don't want to watch
We'll
ugly.
get on
I don't
to
want to spend 45 minutes, 90 minutes watching ugly television. You know, it's just like, yeah.
it. Okay. Right. Okay. So we'll come on then to. Okay. Well, actually, first of all, we get the Doctor's first guy on guy kiss.
Yep.
Yeah. Jack kisses the Doctor. You know, if this happened today, the nation would be in uproar. You'd have
Stannies all over the country would be coming out of the woodwork, I would say.
You'd have MPs saying it was going to cause kids to do crime, and you know,
Real.
which is that was real. I can't believe that actually fucking happened, but yeah, I love Jack's goodbye to the Doctor and Rose. He kisses them both, and I love the understatement. It's not big. There's no music to it. He just goes, "See you in hell," and he just runs off because I think he kind of knows that he's a bit fucked.
Yep.
He knows that he's going to go down fighting, and he knows that this is it. And I love that whole goodbye scene. I think it's really quiet and powerful, and very in keeping with Jack's character. And like I said, I just love the whole see you in hell thing, and he just runs off. And he doesn't give up. I love that. He doesn't give up, even when he does get exterminated. And obviously, we know he comes back to life, and we'll get onto that later. But even when he does get exterminated, he goes down fighting at the very end, even when he's just got a shitty little pistol left.
Yeah.
I love all that. I think it's great.
Oh, it's just Captain Jack Harkness in it. Don't really care for him, so it doesn't really do anything for me.
Right. Okay. So here we
He's
have
just there.
Here we have a scene. I was watching Mr. TARDIS's review of this earlier to prepare, and he this whole episode, he said this is the thing that made him want to get into TV, and it's very important to him. But he was talking about this hologram scene, and I have to agree. This was, as a kid, again, like I say, it's one of those things that the first time a television show really made me feel something, like really had me. Specifically the moment, and I still will go to bat and defend this to my dying day as one of the greatest British television moments of drama ever, with the hologram scene when the Doctor sends Rose home, and he's the hologram, and it doesn't make much sense, but he turns and the sound undistorts, and he says, "Have a good life." And I know you're gonna hate it, but
it's too cheesy for me, mate. Go say what you
hell,
want about it.
Okay.
Say what you want about it. Say what you want about it.
For me, it's just perfect. It hinges on Chris and Billy's performances, and they are both giving career best work. And every time that sign drops out, and he says, "Have a good life," oh my god! I know I've said goosebumps a few times, but that's my hairs stand on end every single time. I think it's such wonderful drama.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about it. It looks like something that should be in one of those promo adverts for Series 1 rather than actually in an episode. But you do you.
What do you
enjoy
mean by
yourself? That? It's just so cheesy. Like, why is it cutting into real sound? Why does he look over to the side? It's just it's so weird.
Yeah,
it takes me out of it. It's like an ad.
It's earnest, is what it is.
Earnest. Go on, you're giving it way much too much credit. It's just. Oh shit! We want to make it impactful. Let's have him do a turn.
Yeah, because it works.
Yeah, it does nothing for me. I just watch it. I'm like, It made me cringe a little bit, if anything.
Oh my god!
But
I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised, but
it is important. It is important at this point. I want to make a little bookmark for this. A very we'll bring this up in about 5 minutes or so anyway. But a bookmark here is the morals that the Doctor sets out here. So he has kept to his word and kept Rose safe, right?
Yeah.
And he has done the absolute best thing for Rose by sending her back. Okay. So he's brought her back to safety, told her to go live out her life. At this point for Rose, her life is enriched, tragically touched, but something she can learn and develop from. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but she's okay.
Just
No,
keep that in
fuck.
mind. Just keep that
No,
in mind.
no. Let's get into it. Because I know what you're gonna say.
All right, we're
I know
brawling.
what
Let's brawl.
I know what you're gonna say. Say what you want to say first, and I'll finish the point, and I'll defend.
Rose's love becomes the absolute most dangerous and damning weapon of the series, completely ruining the morality and the ideas behind the whole episode. By being the way she is and by stubbornly going down the path of love, she not only gives herself so many great, lovely things just for herself, but she forsakes so many lives. She costs the Doctor. She costs everything around her. She costs, she takes everything, all of the Doctor's moral promises, everything that he obliged, and she throws it out of the window because of love. She selfishly decides for herself that because this is what she wants. She chucks everything aside. Jackie, Mickey, caring about her, fuck that. I'm gonna go do what I want. They have a moment where they bring it up to her. They say, well, is your life more important than, do you think you're more important than us or whatever? Or you think you're better than us? She says no, but let's be honest, the way she acts, she might as well just think that. She goes out of her way to go all the way back into that. She swallows the time vortex. Somehow, by the way, she doesn't die from it, but the Doctor does. Silly writing. She goes in there, she kills all of the Daleks, she brings one person back to life with all that power. She doesn't bother to help anyone else, because she only cares about the people in her, close to her life. She causes death. She leaves the rest of it to be how it is. She saves the Doctor and Jack selfishly, not because she cares, but because she wants them for herself. She then takes them. The Doctor then has to sacrifice himself for her. Now we get into your point about him regenerating into what you call a gift for Rose Tyler. Rose Tyler has entirely benefited from this situation, and pretty much everyone else has suffered as a result. I see no feasible moral way in which this is a good resolution.
Well, I mean, there are some blatant things in there that I think I completely disagree with. The one thing, what death does she cause apart from the Daleks?
She allows death. She doesn't save any other lives.
She doesn't know she saved Jack's. That's established in Series 4. She doesn't know he's immortal. That was an accident. And it was an accident because it was kind of her body and her powers kind of automatically acting on who she was close to. It was like an instinct thing. She didn't even know it happened.
So what about this, right? What about the fact that she went in there and the Doctor had to sacrifice himself? I mean, I know he was going to die anyway, but now he's been shaped into something for her. And it's like, well, what the hell? Like, I mean, she could have gone back in time, honoured. She could have been left where she was and understood that was the promise given to her and accepted that and said, right, okay, I'm going to go live my life now. That is in and of itself such a strong moral and integral thing to do to someone, to say, look, I'm going to give you your life back. I know this was great, but this is too much now. You have to go. Give someone the gift of being able to go to that normal life. Her life is now enriched by this experience. Yes, it's a tragic end, but she will grow and learn from it. And, she gets to live that life out. And instead she just puts everything at risk. And I just think, given that she is entirely rewarded for that, I don't think it's fair at all.
I know exactly what you're saying, but also, just coming back to that bit as well, just coming back, like, you say she allows death. What other death does she allow apart from the Daleks?
I think that's a fair shout, to be fair.
She does all, because the way you're talking about it, like, death in the story... It just
strikes me as so selfish.
But all the death in the story happens before all of this. Everyone who dies at the hands of the Daleks, and she gets rid of the Daleks. Like, I would understand if in her process of wiping out the Daleks, some of the humans get wiped out as well. I would completely understand there. But I really...
I don't get how she does it, to be fair to you.
Because she targets the Daleks.
Fair enough.
I don't get how you can look at that and say that she allows death. Like, that's the complete opposite of what happens.
You could, a fair argument is to say that I am, full disclosure, a bit extrapolating here, but you could say that the events of what they go through influences this Dalek attack later on. It sort of builds to it. But that's entirely kind of extrapolating a bit, and I wouldn't necessarily call that a fair argument. But
Right.
Rose.
Okay.
I think it's mostly just my feelings towards Rose throughout this series is that she has acted in a very selfish way, and I think this just kind of shows that.
Yeah, she has. But like, I mean, coming back to this point, then, just to to pick you up on there. So the Doctor sends her home. He's promised to protect her, and he has protected her. He sent her back because he knows he's probably not going to get out of this one.
Yeah.
We know that this is the Doctor. Before she appears, this is the Doctor. He's going, right, this is it. Even if I get a chance to regenerate, they're just going to kill me mid-regeneration anyway. This is my end, right?
Yeah.
He's given up, essentially. And, they say exterminate, and just before she comes back in the TARDIS, he goes, yeah, maybe it's time. And he accepts that he's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's... I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure if he knew he was going to make it out of that alive, he probably would have very much encouraged Rose to find a way to get back at him, to get back to him, right? But because he knows that he's fucked, and obviously he isn't fucked in the end, but he's convinced that he's going to die, he sends her back and asks her to live her life. She's an impulsive 19-year-old who goes, no, there are people up there fighting. There are people up there fighting for what's right and what's good and what's decent, and the Doctor told me you don't sit down and take it, you stand up and fight. So that's what she does. She goes and she stands up and fights, and she saves him.
I don't buy it.
How?
It's bullshit. I think for me, you look at Rose throughout the series, what does she do? She just goes back to the Doctor. I don't buy for 1 second that's what she's really thinking. I buy the fact that she just is kind of selfishly wanting the Doctor back, and she wants that life back.
Yeah, but that's the whole point.
She's not fighting for those people. She's fighting for her opportunity in life, and it's not a fair sort of grounding to take. It's I'm going to put myself at risk. I'm going to put everyone at risk. I'm gonna my mum asked for me to be safe. I've come back safe, and I'm just going to throw it away on the grounds.
Yeah, and it breaks their hearts. It breaks Jackie and Mickey's hearts.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And she says to Mickey, I've got nothing here. How horrible.
Oh yeah,
and
it's horrible.
She says all of this horrid stuff because what she is really doing is she's selfishly chasing a life. It's not. It's this. Don't get it twisted, man. This is not a good motivation.
I'm not getting it twisted.
She's doing a quote unquote good deed for really, really bad reasons, and for me, it just does not sit. It does not sit right. I cannot get behind that.
But I don't think that life has made her outlook on things better. She's seen the Doctor make people better, and I would argue she's doing it to have that life so that more people can be made better by the Doctor. Because otherwise, she knows that he's going to die, they're all going to die up there. All right, it's thousands of years away, but that's it. That is the Doctor gone, and that is all the impact that he had on people, and her life gone. That's why she does it. I know she's selfish. I agree. That whole thing where she says that there's nothing left for her there is horrible and selfish. That's who she is. She's a selfish character. But I completely I don't know how you I don't know how you read this whole thing of her going, no, the Doctor taught me that there was a better way to live life, as her being malicious. I get where you're coming from, but that does not work for me no matter which way I look at it.
Look at it this way, with the perspective of the series we have ahead of it, and I suppose maybe that's not fair.
No, I'd say it's fair. Let's have a look. I've just used that argument on you. So
let's think. So Rose becomes Rose at this point. She does what she wants to do, selfishly. Her motivations are selfish. She goes for the selfish option. I disagree with you on the fact that she's doing it because of that care towards making the world a better place. I think she does it because she likes the thrill of the adventure, but she just wants to keep enjoying that. I think, so she does that, and she's rewarded for it. She gets, as we've talked about in your theory, she kind of gets a Doctor gifted that's kind of ideally for her. She's rewarded for that. Then they're separated in series 2 by a rift. Oh, don't worry about it. She gets Metacrisis Doctor and a TARDIS of her own. She never at any single point in her life is given everything. Every time she does something, her selfish motivations have never ever actually cost her anything in the long run.
But that's boiling that arc down so much.
But it's true. It's a truth of her position. It's a truth of her morals and her motivation. This is a selfish character who has happened to do good things. It's not a good character with good motivations. This is a selfish individual, and I don't agree. It doesn't sit right with me. A selfish individual is being rewarded.
But we'll get into it when we get into series 2. But a big misconception of series 2 is that the show glorifies that fucking pairing, that really like dodgy, smug pairing as something to aspire towards. It doesn't. We have episodes like Tooth and Claw where Queen Victoria is very much like, people have died today, and the 10th Doctor and Rose, you two are laughing. You are dangerous. And in the end, she sets up Torchwood. Their actions set up the organisation that will lead to their departure. Rose gets trapped in a parallel universe. Alright, we'll get into series 4. I do agree that the Metacrisis thing is a little bit of a betrayal of that. But series 2...
massive betrayal of that.
Yeah, but even then, she has learnt to live with her mistakes in that time. But we'll get onto that with series 4. Okay, just sticking to series 2. Her actions and her getting this gift in the form of the 10th Doctor and them becoming this smug pairing leads to their separation. And it leads to the universe punishing them.
But
this
I think...
isn't... I don't... Okay, yeah, go on.
I think the overall net result, though, whether you like it or not, the net result of this is that she hasn't actually lost out on much, given that we have the Metacrisis. She's lost out fuck all, basically. What has she learned? It's just like, well, she's not. There are characters in Doctor Who who are far less egregious in their morals, who have been punished far worse, and it just does not sit right with me. The way Rose Tyler is, the fact that she can get away with all that shit and not be truly ever punished for it.
Fair enough.
That's just me.
Fair enough.
For me, I think Parting of the Ways is the beginning of this sort of moral idea that Rose can do things, can act on a selfish motivation and be rewarded for it. And I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying it's. This is, dear listener. Please, in your own personal life, do not think that you shouldn't be selfish at times. Not at all. It is good to be selfish sometimes. But Rose has a very immature, selfish attitude. She does things. She's a thrill seeker through and through. That's what she wants. She wants the danger and the adrenaline and all of that, and that's all she does. And I just don't think it's fair.
That's the part I disagree with you on. I understand you saying this, and I agree with a lot of it, with the selfishness. But where you say that her motivation for going back is like inherently wrong, I just don't see that.
Series, I just cannot buy it. It's not.
Yeah, but if your friend, if your friend that you were super close to sent you back for your own protection, but you knew that they were going to die. In that scenario, well, certainly I would fight tooth and claw, tooth and nail, whatever, to try and help them. Like, even if it was against their wishes, because if they were in trouble, like, it's that part that I just can't get my head around, that reading of it.
To me, it's because I have the opposite opinion. If I sent someone back and I said, look, you don't come after me, the last thing I would want them to do is come after me. I just think, like, please just, like, fucking respect the wish,
Yeah, but
you're just
but again,
jeopardizing it all.
It's respect the wish of a man who's convinced he's going to die, and there is a chance that he won't die. There is a chance to prevent this.
I just think you should respect the wish. I think it's his morals, his integrity. I think it's disrespectful because you're doing it for yourself.
I don't think she's doing it for... Okay, well, I think we're just going around in circles, but I disagree with that point that just her wanting to save the Doctor is for herself, because
it's just I don't know how to describe it, man. It's like, I just don't think it's okay what she did.
Fair enough.
I don't think it's okay.
Fair
I
enough.
don't think that's nice. Because I don't believe the motivation has any respect for the Doctor and his wishes. If he thinks that's his time, and
Yeah,
he's
but it's
kind of
him.
his
Okay.
gift at that point, his gift to her was her safety, and the memories of him. That's what lives on. Whereas now he's kind of been forced into a different situation. I just don't think that's fair.
Fair enough.
I don't know. It's just me.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just think it's okay.
Maybe
yeah.
morals. These sorts of viewpoints change at time. Maybe I'll come back to this in 5 years and decide I have a different view. But that's just how I feel at the moment. I just don't think it's okay.
And I just think personally, leading on to the regeneration, then I think for this Doctor's arc, this Doctor's arc has always been about learning to be the Doctor again. The fact that he goes out saving someone, which is what the Doctor does, he makes people better. The Doctor makes people better, and he saves people. He goes out saving someone, and that whole thing where he stands up and goes, "I think you need a doctor," is again, I think it's a gorgeous way to just wrap that arc up. It's so simple, but it's him really reclaiming that title. He's chosen not to be what he was. He's chosen to move past his guilt, and now he's going to save someone. He's going to be a doctor. This is the Doctor that lives up to his namesake probably more than any other in this moment. He is a doctor. He mends people, and that self-sacrifice thing.
To me is a really lovely moment, hampered by absolutely horrific writing. I think it's a lovely thing what you're saying, and it would be even better if it was actually written that well.
What part of it isn't for you?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think I just can't stand the idea that he kissed her to take that time energy out of her. I just find it so weird.
Fair enough.
I also think that like the idea that Rose has had all this kind of time vortex in her for significantly longer than the Doctor has it in him before he channels it immediately back into the TARDIS. Yet that kills the Doctor. So what? I mean, we know for a fact his body's more resilient than a human being. How the hell has that killed him?
I always interpreted it as, I agree with you, there probably should have been consequences for Rose. But I always took it.
Died.
But I always took it as the energy was growing more powerful, and by the time the Doctor had absorbed it, he had taken it so deeply in that it had gone so powerful.
I don't know. I mean, Rose look. I mean, the way it's presented, at least, Rose spends. Rose takes in a bumload of it, and then.
I know what you mean.
She spends so much time with it. It's like I don't understand. Rose has a bit of a headache from it, basically. And
I agree there should have been more
dies.
consequences, but I just don't. I think the character drama is so strong that it overrides that for me.
For me, it's one of those things where it's like, shit, I wish, obviously this is partially influenced by the fact that Eccleston left at this point. And I think it shows. Because it's like, fuck, we've got to make this the moment he dies, didn't it?
Oh no, I think he was fully committed to doing the ending. He said he was leaving, but he was committed to. It was not like he walked off and they had to.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I just think that probably as soon as they were like, oh, we're leaving. I mean, he's leaving. It's like, oh shit, we've got to do the regeneration then. They've got to sit down and write it, and I just feel like it's sloppy. It's really, really sloppy. And it's not a brilliant regeneration. And it's a shame, really, that he regenerates so soon. I mean, for starters, I just don't think he's anywhere near complete with his arc. I think he's only just begun it, really, when he dies.
Oh, I completely disagree. I think he has the most complete arc of any Doctor.
No, I think he needs a couple more seasons to refine that.
No, I think it just would have got lost. I think this whole simple arc of him learning to be a Doctor again, and then his last words, I think, really solidify that for me. He says, "Do you know what? You were fantastic, and do you know what? So was I." And that's him moving past his guilt and learning to love himself again. And he smiles, this big beaming grin. He goes out smiling. He dies happy. He regenerates with a big grin on his face.
I don't think it's too soon. I think it's one of those
I
things
couldn't
where
disagree more.
it really shows. I think it's one of those moments where it's like, yeah, this is obviously written in because Eccleston's leaving.
I couldn't disagree more. I think
don't
that
like
arc
it. I don't
is
like
just
it.
so complete.
Just
And I think
consider
it's
for a
so
second what would
tight.
happen if he didn't leave. Like, you know, basically what you're saying is you got really lucky that it's completed in a way that you found satisfying. Like, it just doesn't feel weird. It feels weird. It
And
just doesn't feel
Eccleston
right to me.
agrees. It's why he said that he wouldn't come back because for a variety of reasons, but he has said he wouldn't want to spoil that arc either, because he said that he got the gift. He said that he got a gift of having a really complete arc.
Fair enough. I don't agree, but I think that ending's just handled a bit poorly.
I
think the message is nice. I just think that the ending's handled poorly.
The actual regeneration scene, I think it's so. This is why I disagree with you that it's so mean spirited, because that is full of hope. He's going out with a big old smile on his face.
For me, it's mean spirited because you know what he's going to be. He's going to be Rose's ideal partner, and it's like, oh, really? He's gone out for all of that. He's had this moment of reconciliation, only to just basically end up being this thing for a selfish girl he's met.
Not initially, though.
Jesus.
Initially, she doesn't want anything to do with him. They have the Born Again special, The Children Need One, where all throughout Christmas Invasion, they're like, who is he? I don't know if I can trust him.
No, I get that, but it's
not
just
initially. I completely disagree. I think that big smile at the end tells you all you need.
Oh, I don't know. I don't agree with that. I just think it's
fair enough.
It doesn't feel good to me. It makes me feel like it's just like, oh yeah, he's kind of, I don't know. I bent to Rose's will almost more than he's kind of done anything else.
I completely disagree with that. What do you think? Yeah, I know. I disagree. So what do you think of David Tennant in his brief appearance then?
Well, I suppose the only words in my head were, oh no. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to it. I've got no problem with David Tennant. I just know what I'm about to get myself into.
That's what I'm saying. The performance. What did you think of
his
little brief?
He's fine. He's David Tennant plays the Doctor. He's not particularly kind of memorable.
Just
Doctor.
in this
he's
scene,
just the Doctor.
I
know. He's just doing that again. He's just he's being a bit silly. All right. See ya. He wasn't at this point because I quite like the Ninth Doctor now. He wasn't really a welcome entry for me at this point.
Right.
Just because I felt like we were on a good stride with the Ninth Doctor, and it was like, well, this was not the time for him. It just feels way too soon for me. It feels way too... I wasn't particularly interested in seeing 10 at this point. I was hoping to spend a bit more time away from 10.
Okay. So that's
about it.
So that's the story.
That's the story, man.
Just wrapping it up. Performances. What do you think?
Yeah, probably the best part of this episode.
Incredible all around, right?
Can't fault them.
Chris, everything in this hinges on Chris and Billy, and Chris and Billy knock it out of the park.
Yep, they're well acted.
I just.
For what the scripts tell them to do, they act it well.
I know. I know you're gonna. What your answer to this is gonna be? Music. It's shit.
Shit.
Yeah, there you go.
No need to even go into that.
One of my favourite bits of music of Doctor Who ever is the regeneration scene.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like some sort of parody of heaven.
What? It's just emotional music, man. Like it's heartfelt and it's full of joy and hope. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's silliness.
It's not silliness. It's gorgeous music.
Silly soundtrack.
Fair enough. Design and direction we've spoken about. It's a gorgeous looking episode. You said direction. Hang on.
You said design. You said design.
I said design and direction.
Yes, you said design, and I said shit for that.
Okay.
I didn't mean to say direction. Yes, lovely direction.
Right. Okay.
Lovely direction.
Design shit. Right. Whatever.
Don't worry. I haven't turned 180 on myself.
Okay. Is that everything? I think. Is there anything you want to say before we put this to bed?
Bad Wolf is a really fucking boring first part. Can I just say that? It's really boring. Like, it's actually dull.
Okay.
And a big part of the Act 3 of Parting of the Ways is really dull too. That's just what I want to say. I just find it
No,
really boring.
no, no,
Really
no,
boring.
no.
Yes, it's
Oh
boring.
my god. What?
It's really
Fucking
boring.
hang on. This is boring, but Armageddon Factor's all right.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I like Armageddon.
No.
Factor. At least it's entertaining.
Wandering around dull brown caves for 6 episodes.
I'll take that.
Fucking hell.
Tom Baker's charismatic. It's a watchable bit of fun.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So that everything do we think?
Yeah. I think that's enough.
What? Okay. Let's get into some trivia. So, originally, it did look like Rose was going to die. They did film, and the scene has never been released, so it is lost media. It didn't pop up on any of the DVDs. They did film a fake-out scene at the end to keep the regeneration as a surprise for preview screenings and all that.
Oh, cool.
Very similar to what we have, except the Doctor absorbs the energy, takes it into the TARDIS. That doesn't kill him. Instead, we go back into the TARDIS. He scans Rose, and on the scanner screen it says life form dying, and that's the cliffhanger end of the series.
Fair enough.
So that was going to be the original ending, which I think would have fixed some of your complaints, but
Would have fixed all of my complaints. No, not all of them, but some of them, yeah.
okay, but c'est la vie, I guess.
See la vie, eh? I don't have to watch this again, eh? Brilliant. This is actually that's something I wanted to say. You know, they always say, if you don't like it, don't watch it.
You're never going to watch it again.
I think this podcast is a great reminder to people. Don't bother watching something you know you don't like.
This is true, actually.
I'm watching it for the point of the podcast, right? I want to be clear that, like, as much as I'm obviously getting vexed and having a bit of a laugh and playing it up a little bit, in all seriousness, I don't really enjoy talking negatively about Doctor Who.
No, I
It's
don't think
not
any of
fun
us
for me.
do, right? Like, no, I certainly don't.
I like what I like, and
Yeah.
In day-to-day discussion when I'm not mucking about on the podcast, it's really just, oh, I like this and I don't like this.
Yeah, and I that's why I pointed out at the start, this podcast is not meant to try and change anyone's mind. I'm not trying to change your mind. We're just debating. It's all the whole point of us doing this podcast is to kind of go, look, we can have wildly different opinions on a TV show and still be good friends.
Yeah, because this is the thing. At the end of this podcast, you know, I'm not actually beefing with Lewis. I may play it up, like I say, but
and I'm
but
playing
not
up
actually.
as well, right? Like,
we're obviously more heated than we actually feel. And I just want to be clear. I think it's a worthwhile understanding that, you know, yeah, I don't like this era. For the most part, I found a lot of nice positivity from it, which has been enjoyable. Like, you know, for instance, like in Boomtown and things like that. But it is a really good reminder that actually, you know, you only get to watch a certain amount of things in your life.
Yeah.
And you should, you know, you should really just enjoy what you want to enjoy. And there's no point going off unless you're doing something like this where I'm doing a podcast. You shouldn't be just going out of your way to watch things you don't like so you can fight people online over it or something like that, you know?
Yes, exactly.
And I hope doing this podcast is a good reminder for people about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will never think about this episode ever again, to be dead honest
that's
with you.
what I wanted to clear up at the start, because I just think it's very easy, especially on the internet.
Yes.
When it, you know, everything is heightened. And I don't care what anyone says, everything is heightened on the internet.
It is, absolutely.
Even
absolutely.
little things are heightened to, you know.
Because at the end of the day, I know there will be people in comment sections of the YouTube upload and whatever arguing to the death about how wrong I am or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, does it really matter?
End of the day, I mean, you can hear we have very different opinions on this. But
and I'm not telling anyone that you should not enjoy this episode.
Yeah, exactly. You
absolutely can enjoy this episode.
Well, that's it.
Please do, and if you do, power to you.
That's why I said we're not trying to fight each other, are we? So.
No. Yeah, but I just think that's important on an episode like this, where obviously we're so divisive about it.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder and a nice finale note, isn't it?
But yeah, just to clear that up, I guess.
Really, yeah.
Right. So, so yeah. First same-sex kiss, we mentioned that, ever in Doctor Who. Big milestone.
Big up.
Yeah, big up. This was the last time that the lead character in the credits is called Doctor Who until the next Doctor.
That was upon David Tennant's request, is that right?
David Tennant wanted it taken back to the Doctor because that's how it was when Davison took over. It had always been Doctor Who, and they kept that with this, but then David was like, can we just have it be the Doctor, please? So, yeah, there we go. It's Christopher Eccleston is credited as Doctor Who for the whole series, which I find funny. Yeah. So yeah, the close-ups of the Emperor's water tank are quite interesting because submerging the puppet in there ended up in the water tank. It ended up destroying the whole mechanics of the puppet.
Oh God!
Yeah, in Daleks in Manhattan when it comes back later, it's CG because they didn't want to ruin the things again.
Wait, so they used the same. I thought that mutant was only for Dalek Sec, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, but
Daleks
it's the
Manhattan.
same. It's meant to be the same model because they were going to use a practical one, but they didn't want to fucking ruin the.
Oh, I see. So
they were
they were
basically
use the same animatronic puppet for Dalek Sec?
No, they were going to use the same technique.
Oh,
but
I see.
this
But
kind
why
of-
would they have to? Why would they have to submerge?
I think
it
it just
that
made them err on the side of caution.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, I find that quite fun. That's a bit of a classic Doctor Who effect blunder.
It is. Yeah.
David Tennant's portion of the Regeneration was filmed way later than Chris Eccleston's. They weren't on set. It was a classic thing where Billy Piper's segment was filmed. I think we're going to get a repeat of this with Jodie's, to be honest. But it basically, they were filmed very separate and they were cut together. Again, it's good editing. You can't tell. So I think that pretty much wraps it up, to be honest. Apart from like inane things, what would you give? God help me. What would you give this out of 10?
1.5.
I'm not gonna lie, that's higher than I thought. I thought you were gonna go at 0.5.
I've given it.
or
I've given it for the performance. It gets a 1.5, and for the fact that there are ideas in there that are interesting. I feel like it would be way too harsh for me to go any lower than that.
Fair enough.
That's to give it credit, you know.
9.5. 9.5 from me.
Fucking hell.
Oh,
Fucking
what
hell.
a big. We're living up to our name in this Polarity.
This is Polarity. This is real deal Polarity.
Uh,
This ain't your mama's monologue. This is some serious
Yeah, if
shit.
you've listened to this podcast so far and thought, those guys aren't really very polarised.
Yeah, they seem to agree quite well.
Yeah.
Here you go.
This is going to be the turning point, folks.
I imagine it's going to get more intense from this point out as well, by the way.
So
Series 1 is my favourite RTD.
so 9.5. It's my favourite Eccleston story. I think it's a masterpiece.
I can't imagine how you could think that when Father's Day is in the same series, but
Father's Day's great,
go off.
but I prefer this.
Fair enough.
But there we go. Shall we wrap it up there for the final time of this series?
Let's wrap it up.
So thank you once again for joining us for another Polarity podcast. We have said goodbye to the 9th Doctor, and we are on the reign of the 10th. This is the final episode of Series 1, but it is not the final episode of the Polarity podcast Series 1 just yet.
Although worth saying, last time we labelled the Boomtown one as penultimate, so
yes,
sorry if you thought this was the last one. There is one more.
There is
I hope this
one
gets your hopes up.
little epilogue for this series, and then we're going to take a bit of a break. But we have this one epilogue remaining. We're going to round up Series 1. We're going to name our favourites, least favourites. We're going to have a good old chinwag about the series as a whole and what we found revisiting it for this podcast. So look forward to that. In the meantime, you can follow our Twitter and Instagram and follow our own personal Twitters and Instagrams, should you so desire. We'll see you next time for the final epilogue of the first series of this podcast. See you then.
Bye.